Okay, Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Sibtain Jiwani, CEO and founder of Smartbenefits. Um, Thank you everyone who is joining us today. It's a great pleasure to host our first episode with HR leaders and have a conversation about a very interesting topic. For our audience who has just joined us, let me introduce myself. I'm Sibtain. I'm the CEO and founder of Smart Benefits. We help companies of all sizes with employee benefits, including health and wellness benefits. I'm here today with two esteemed panelists, Saadia Zahid and Ayesha Tariq Sethi. Let me first introduce Saadia. So, Saadia is head of HR at BreakThru, which is a growing technology company and services company offering cutting edge messaging and AI products and services to online advertisers and a proud client of Smart Benefits. Saadia has 8 years of extensive experience in human resource and currently leading all HR aspects of 350 plus employees at BreakThru. She has also worked at TRG Pakistan in compliance and ethics and worked in UAE before. Welcome, Saadia. Um, Let me introduce Aisha. So, Aisha, since the past 1 decade, has been actively engaged in developing business acumen through both learning and working experiences in area of project management, internal audited corporate strategy. She has trained more than 800 plus employees across listed companies from banking, insurance, FMCG, and power sector. At present, she leads Healthx Pakistan, a multinational and affiliate of True Dog Group International, as the head of human resource. Aisha is qualified as senior certified professional in strategic HR management and has an MBA in strategy from Cox University in Istanbul and UBC Vancouver. Thank you, Saadia and Aisha, for joining us. It's a great pleasure to be here. So let me give some background why we are doing this webinar and what is this topic about. So Pakistan is going, tech industry is going through a very unique phase. If you talk about the IT exports, in 2018 we were standing at $700 million. Since then, it has more than doubled and now at $2 billion. So technology companies and their hiring has tremendously increased. Further to that, in the last 2 years, startups have raised a lot of VC capital, and most of that is deployed in hiring top talent to build products. This has made it's quite challenging for to hire and retain tech talent. So we chose this topic of challenge of hiring and retaining best talent from tech companies, and we want to learn from our experts. So first, I'll ask Sadia. I have a question for you. So since Breakthrough has grown tremendously in the last couple of years, if you look back when you were an early growth stage company and had about 100 employees, and versus now when you're an established company, more than 350 employees, what has changed in terms of hiring, retaining talent, and what are your learnings, if you could share, of 100 to 350 company transition, and what were the things that you put in place? Sadia, we can't hear you. Sorry. Can you hear me? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah,
Can you check
okay.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. So the industry has seen, I would say, in the past 4 years, especially in the span of 1.5 year, it has seen drastic changes in terms of what employees want from employers, especially because it's not just about what you are giving them on monetary terms. Basically, it is also about work culture. It is also about how flexible you are in terms of working hours. It's also about compensation and benefits. For example, what kind of benefits you have for them, right? It is, I would say, when I started early on in 2018, when I started off the technical hiring, it was very, very different to as
Sadia, I don't know, is it your internet or my internet?
I think it's Sadia's internet. Even I
Okay.
can't hear her properly.
Sadia, sorry, you're breaking up. Can you hear me, Sadia? Uh, yeah, I think there's some internet problem. Aisha, would you like to take that question in terms of you've been in the HR space for the last decade or so? What has evolved over during that time period in terms of tech hiring or overall hiring? What are the expectations and how do you look at that?
So, thank you, Sibtain, first of all, for having me over. It's a very exciting topic, and I think it's very pertinent in terms of changes that are taking place in the global market space in terms of labor demand and supply. So, in the past 1 decade, if we can see, there has been a very clear trend towards the world becoming a global digital marketplace. So there has been an upward tick in digitalization as a whole, whether it is marketing, whether it is HR, whether it's advertising, manufacturing. So because of this uptick in digitalization, obviously the demand for tech talent has increased. There has been an uptick in nanotechnology, robotics, automation. So in key skill, the tech skills have become more valuable than they were ever before. So when it comes to retention and when it comes to retaining high quality talent, अगर हम पाकिस्तान में देखें locally in the ecosystem, it's about simple economics of demand and supply. So if your demand is increasing the supply, so obviously जो आपकी value है of tech talent, that would be naturally higher. There would be more competition for such kind of talent, which obviously naturally makes it difficult for tech companies to retain such kind of talent. Recently, a study has been conducted by Pasha. 2021 का पाशा का सैलरी सर्वे आया था जिसमें were interviewed across 175 companies, and there has been 70 that employees have been leaving because they're asking for higher increments and they're not getting it. So 78% have attributed a high employee turnover and high employee attrition because of the lack of proper increment structure. So this is just one example which shows that how the skills, the demand for these tech skills have increased over the years, and how it has become more and more challenging to retain these highly talented professionals.
Great, Aisha. So what are the things like would employee branding help companies attract great talent in these days? Because it's kind of a fight or war to get the best talent. So what are the kind of things that companies can put in place to attract great talent? What are your thoughts on that?
So, see, what is employer branding? Let's first dissect this concept as a whole. Employer branding is basically sharing an employer's value proposition in publicly in front of the world, that this is the value that employer is offering to all potential recruits and potential talent, and that is, this should be the number one reason to join that company.
True.
Employer branding is as good and as true to the extent to which the company holds their promises when they actually recruit talent. So if the company has a strong employee value proposition, which means that these are the top 10 reasons why you should be part of this company, and then you communicate those reasons via employer branding, and when those employees actually join the company, they find that all of those reasons are actually true. I think living up to your employer branding can significantly impact how you're able to retain and engage talent.
I think it's a very valid point. It's not just about creating, having birthday parties or something, or building or showing it off to the world that you're a great company to work with. You need to live up to a lot of expectations which you create for the world and for the employees to actually see for themselves when they join the company. and then obviously enjoy being part of that organization. Saadia, I hope your internet is working back now. Thanks for joining again. So my question again, I think you were responding to that primarily that things have evolved over a period of time, and you mentioned that when you joined in 2018, times were really different. So can you walk us through the journey? What has evolved over a period of time? What do you think you have put in place? What is your experience? Uh, yeah.
I would take Aisha's comment forward and I would talk about supply and demand again. That, earlier when we were kicking off vacancies, it used to take us almost 15 to 20 days in filling up a position. As of, if we compare it from now, it at least take us around 30 to 40 days in filling up a position. And even when we are ready to meet up the expectations and we are not negotiating with the candidates with whatever they are asking, and we are not in a position, we are basically not in a position to negotiate, because obviously talking about demand and supply, क्योंकि demand हमारे पास जो है वो candidates की जो है वो ज़्यादा है उनकी expectations हम meet कर लेते हैं, demand हमारे पास candidates की market में जो है वो
Sadia, you're breaking up. I'm sorry. Sadia, can you hear me?
I think there's
Sorry.
an internet
Yeah,
challenge.
it's Pakistan. You can't do much.
True, 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 true.
Right. I'm sure Sadia will join back again. So, would you like to add anything to this part, Aisha, or should I move on to the next question?
Sure. So अगर मैं डिमांड एंड सप्लाई की ही मजीद में बात करूँ, so now since I think the past 5 years, local digital talent has become part of the global marketplace, which means that local companies like your IT companies over here are no longer just competing with local other IT companies. The competitive pool for employers is now the global IT companies. So, in that scenario, because with and especially with all of these freelancing websites like Upwork and a host of other websites like Fiverr, जहाँ पे लोग अपनी skills sell कर सकते हैं and they can earn in dollars, उसकी वजह से भी हमने local rates में inflation देखी है. So if someone is making, let's say, 500,000 rupees or more than that of freelancing from Upwork, and you're trying to bring that talent on board in the local environment, the question is, why would they want to come if they cannot get a better rate or at least a similar rate? So this makes negotiations all the more challenging, which means that employers really need to ask themselves that beyond salary, how else they can provide value to the employees so that they are encouraged to join local companies and take that decision basically.
You have put a very interesting point forward that it's no longer competing against the local tech companies. You are competing against the marketplace of the world, actually.
Yeah.
And then there are startups who are raising money, and they're raising money to hire talent primarily, and great tech teams. Um, what are the few measures? Sadia, thanks for joining back again. So, Sadia, if I have to put the question towards you again, um, what are the kind of things that companies need to put in place to retain talent who are now available internationally to companies who can pay them in dollars, top dollars actually, who can actually give them more flexibility of working from home or anywhere. How do you compete against that? How do you make sure that you are prepared for it as an organization to tackle that kind of a challenge?
So there's not a single formula for it, Saptan, to be honest, and it's a constant struggle that you have to do. You have to maintain a very good culture for employees. That's one thing, and it's a constant thing. You don't, you cannot say that we have a good budget in place and you go about it and you do it. You have to do it every day. You have to have something or the other for them every now and then. Then you have to have good uh, salary, of course, which is why they are there for, right? And then you have to have good benefit structure in place, and then you have to be very flexible in their work schedule as well. And then if you have to conduct, this is how what and how we do it in our company, and this is what we do basically is we conduct surveys and we take their feedbacks. By the way, we also took feedback from our employees, and then we did our best places to work thing, and then we won a certification for best places to work. And I believe that this is why we were able to do it, because we took feedback from our employees, and then we were able to work on the feedback, because we sit on a table and we say, okay, this is where we are and this is what we are doing. Now you tell us what we can do to make it better for you. And I think this is why we are successful, and our retention rate is, alhamdulillah, it's 87% as of now, and we are able to retain good talent.
Wow, that's an amazing retention rate to have of 87%. So it seems like that you're taking a lot of feedback. You are not just assuming what you think is best for them. You are keeping yourself, aware of the dynamics which are changing of employees. But how do you balance it? Because an employee can actually, be very irrational about time and ask you things that you don't, want to, and you think as an organization I should be careful if I offer this, right? And sometimes, other organizations not doing it. Would you be the first one to do it? Can you dare take that call that we'll be the first
So
one to do this kind of thing?
So
Have you done
healthy
it?
discussions are, I would say, healthy discussions are always helpful, because what happens is, if employee is demanding something, you can always put another perspective to it. For example, I can tell an employee that this is how you are looking at it, and this is how, as an employer, I look at it. And if I have to do it for you, then I have to look at 350 employees as well. So a healthy discussion always helps. So many times what happens is, if they are putting up a request, they are not looking at it from your point of view. But when you sit down on a table and you tell them that this is how it is, and maybe another perspective to it is, or another consequence to it is, if we do this, we'll have to face this, then they understand it. So for example, if they are demanding for 10 things in your survey, you can meet two demands, and they'll be happy at the end of the day. They at least feel heard.
Absolutely, absolutely. Aisha, coming back to you. I think Saadia has already touched upon it about the compensation package, and it's no longer just about a good salary package. You need to give them more reasons to do that, and that is where employee benefits come in. And you also work for an organization, Healthx, where which gives or builds benefits, different health benefits. So can you share what kind of benefits a company should have in place, and should they wait for becoming a certain size of a company before they start implementing it? Because there is a certain myth around this that I should do this when I become a 100 people company. I should do this when I become a 50 people company. What kind of things that a company should put in place, especially if you are looking for a tech team, tech talent, and how Healthx can help them?
sure. Thank you so much, Sibtain. Building up to what Sadia was just saying, first of all, it's important for the employees to be heard. So sometimes it's not possible to like meet all expectations, but even partially addressing some of those concerns goes a long way in establishing the credibility of the organization and the HR department. Secondly, I would like to touch upon a concept called psychological contract. So basically, psychological contract is balancing the give and take relationship between the employer and the employee. Uh, Employers need to know that this is what they're getting from the employee, and it also makes it easier for them to justify the benefits or the privileges that they're giving to the employees. And employees also need to know that this is what they're giving to the company in terms of not only productivity and work results, but also the right behaviors. Uh, to employees might be delivering excellent productivity. It's just that one might be going the extra mile to do more for the company, doing things beyond his or her JD. So obviously we cannot equate the two together. उसकी the walking the extra mile part उस चीज को देखे और reward करे. So this is the essence of psychological contract. The relationship is balanced when the give and take between employer and employee is held in due balance. Coming back to benefits and health tax, एचआर की एक बहुत बड़ी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी होती है एम्प्लॉय हेल्थ केयर को मैनेज करना, नॉट ओनली फॉर द एम्प्लॉयज बट फॉर द फैमिलीज एज वेल. That is why a lot of employers have health insurance policies on board, and I think that's what Smart Benefits is also doing right now to make sure that this objective of companies' HR is achieved. And to complement that, this is exactly what Healthx is doing right now. So, Healthx is basically a multinational corporation which recently launched in Pakistan. It is an affiliate of True Dog Group International UAE. So, we already have a global presence in around 10 plus countries. Uh, what we are providing right now to all organizations and primary healthcare solution, which means that just on the basis of a monthly subscription, you get 24/7 access licensed doctors practicing evidence based medicine, psychologists, and wellness experts. So, this is the offering. Also have a lot of technology integrated with the systems, which means के Bluetooth enabled devices आपके vitals on spot लेके हमारे EMR system को communicate कर दे, and then the doctor can provide prescriptions on the basis of those of that reporting. Packages. So this is what Healthx is trying to do, and the idea is to actually build into that employee value proposition. Because if you're working for, let's say,
Aisha, we lost you, I guess. Um, Aisha, can you hear me? Um, I think we've lost Aisha. I think we're all having internet issues today. Sadia, I'll come back to you again.
Sure.
Um, about this specifically on benefit side, um, you've put in place health insurance. You've put in different benefits in place for your employees. And as I said, you mentioned that you've taken feedback from employees before putting in those things in place. What is your advice to companies who are starting up, who are in their early stage? Uh, what are the kind of benefits they should definitely consider and not delay this just because they're not big enough? Um they should look at that. What's your advice on that? And what has worked for you?
So when we started off, we also started off smaller. I should tell you, of course, everybody started off smaller. So we did the same thing, but we made sure that things are there for employees, because at the end of the day, they are working for you, and they need to have certain things in place. So even if you're starting off smaller, try to have whatever you can for them in place, because I have worked with you for medical insurance and for other companies as well. And when you start having things in place, it doesn't cost you much, but when you are selling your jobs, especially for the tech industry, I would say it does matter a lot when you are selling a job to a candidate, and when they ask you about the benefit and you say you only have a salary in place, it impacts your selling too much. Try to have a consolidated plan in place before you go and sell a job, otherwise it's going to impact your recruitment too much. It will impact your efforts. It will impact your efforts. It will impact your recruitment time. It will impact your the kind of resources that you are going to hire. So have things in place, full-fledged plan in place before you go on recruitment.
No, I think it's pretty important because recruitment cycles are going up primarily in tech hiring. Um,
Yes.
you know, resources are getting multiple offers. They are delaying responding to recruiters and looking for other opportunities.
There are no two ways about it.
Yeah. So I think you are absolutely right that when an HR sits in front of the resource who they really want to hire, then put in front of them such a plan that they can't just say that they are convinced that the company really cares for them, because one of the things that one of the things that we've learned is from working with a lot of companies, while building smart benefits, is that companies, those companies who really care for their employees are the ones who really are able to attract good talent
And
and
retain.
and yeah, retain them as well, and show them that they are also humans. They're not just hiring labor or resources because they want to get something done, because that's no
Because
longer
I'll tell
true.
you something, today's talent does not want to get hired only. They want to be cared.
Yeah, yeah, correct. And absolutely, and this is what we've spoken to a lot of people, employees, recruiters, and it's no longer, because the new generation that we're looking at, obviously not my generation, the one which is 10, 15 years before me, they are pretty they have different reasons for joining an organization. They have a different purpose. They are on the search, seems like. So coming back to Aisha, Aisha, thank you for joining back again. Just, I think let's continue from where you were talking about value proposition, about employee value proposition. If you want to, share what you were talking about.
Sure. So then, can you just tell
Yeah,
me where I left off, where I disconnected, so I can continue from there?
yeah. You were talking about employee value proposition, about how Healthx helps companies with putting that together. Yeah, that's how much I recall.
Sure. So when it comes to employee healthcare and benefits, that is exactly what Healthx is providing right now, which is an integrated healthcare solution, which extends obviously beyond insurance and complements healthcare insurance. The idea is to reduce burden on the insurance companies and hospitals ताकि लोगों को 24/7 healthcare access हो at a fraction of a cost. So just on the basis of a monthly subscription, or members, they get 24/7 access to healthcare facilities, and we have our own licensed doctors practicing out of a call center. So it's not that we are not a platform के जिसपे doctors on board होते हैं, and based on their availability you get an appointment. Our doctors operate out of our own facility, they are our own payroll, and our EMR manages things in such a way that no matter who the doctor is on duty, your concerns are taken care of because the entire patient history is being recorded back in the system. So I think in a country like Pakistan, where healthcare is already a challenge, I think this can be a substantial value addition to the entire healthcare infrastructure.
100%. I think primary care is somewhat missing from medical insurance. Um, uh, Sadia, if I come back to you again, and if you talk about, there are obviously multiple ways of retaining employees and development of employees as well. Um, Obviously, you can hire people from other companies and put them in your organization and get work done. But the best way is to build a long term plan where actually you can put them through a program where they are upskilled, as because technology is evolving very fast. It's no longer, okay, whatever you learn, whatever you know 3 years ago would be applicable now. What kind of processes or what kind of things that companies can put in place, and how critical it is this, how critical does it get as you grow? Yeah, if you could share more about that.
About training employees, if I'm not getting your question wrong, Saptan,
Sorry, say again.
about training employees for future.
Yeah. How do you prioritize that? How do you put that in place?
Right. So we do have a training plan in place for different departments, right? And we do have a budget allocated for the entire company, right? And we try to. This is what we are doing. Obviously, companies according to their size, they can do it differently, but this is what I am doing for BreakThru as of now. We every quarter we take a different department under consideration, and according to the need of the company, because we have a plan in place, right? That probably in the next 6 months or probably in the next year we have this project coming up, or we are for example, for the dev group, we are going to work on this technology, or maybe we are going to transfer or maybe work on another technology or shift some data to another framework or something. So we try to train our resources or to on that skill set basically. So we try to allocate a budget to a department every quarter, and then we try to train our resources accordingly. So whatever new skills are coming up, we try to train them accordingly. This is how we are doing it. So we need to make sure that the employees are not feeling that they are not getting the training on the recent technologies, as well as the company is updated.
Yeah. And I think this needs a lot of communication between team leaders and managers with
Yeah.
HR, and making sure that you are aware as HR, as leaders, what kind of skill set that you need to
There's a
make
lot
sure
of
that.
correspondence that needs to happen. Of course, when we kick off something, we need to do TNA. Of course, you know how it goes. You need to conduct analysis, and then what's there and what's needed. What is the specific skill set that we need to infuse in in the employees, and then what's going to be the benefit, and then we do post training assessments as well.
Right, right. We are getting a lot of questions in the comment section from Vahaj. I think Vahaj has already asked about 3 4 questions. Then there are quite a few others as well. But before we go to the questions, we're going to go to the question in the next few minutes. So everyone, just stay with us. I'm just going to wrap it up, and but before that, I have just one last question from Aisha. And since she's worked with a lot of organizations, she's work with very closely with startups and other organizations. So my question is that as technology, as founders who are early stage organization, how do you, what kind of things that you put in place to attract the talent? What works best? Is it just because you don't have a lot of customers, you don't have a lot of things to show off, you might have some funding, but how do you really get the right team to work with you? Because the early team that is with you, 5 6 people, they are kind of make or break, because if you get that wrong, you would be there, you might just waste 6 months, 8 months, um, and you have to get that right. How do you make that happen?
That's a valid question, Sibtain. If I were to put it in one word, that would be purpose. So, and I'll give you the example of Healthx because I hired the entire team of Healthx before it was actually launched in the market, before even the website was out there. And we got the highest quality talent available in the industry from very reputable institutions without having a website, without having a social media handles up and running. And I think it's the so everybody's looking for meaning and purpose in their lives. People just don't want to do a job. The millennials out there, or even the general your talent pool, is looking for work that also contributes towards something bigger and something much more than just like earning a paycheck, or just taking care of themselves and their families. People want to be part of organizations that are purpose driven, that are led by a vision, that are trying to do something which actually solves people's problems and improves the quality of lives. So when I was hiring for Healthx, I think Hamara just single most compelling value proposition that was about changing the healthcare infrastructure in Pakistan, where quality healthcare is scarce and it's very difficult to get good quality healthcare at your convenience. So that was a vision and a purpose which actually drove our entire interview process. That was the first thing that we shared with the candidates if they walked into the interview room, because we were very clear and committed in how we're trying to do something different, and how we're trying to solve a problem which is a great problem for the entire community. So I think before you have other things to like show off. I think just a compelling purpose and vision can actually go a long way in getting quality talent on board.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the same. I'm a startup founder myself, and I think until you don't figure that out, it's kind of hard to get the right people on board. Sometimes, obviously, startups are like you're building the ship, or you're building something on the go, on the fly. It's not very figured out. Not everything is figured out. But I think one of the things other is that the founders behind it have to really show that they have a certain passion that they're following. And I think that also helps along with purpose and goes together. So
Simran, just one more thing,
yeah,
just to add on to what you just said. Uh, so Healthx, अगर मैं Healthx example दूँ, so
Ji.
Healthx is a multinational, so we already have a track record of of like the past 1 decade. So we have been there in the market for globally for 10 plus years. We have solved healthcare problems. So when we were showcasing our vision and our purpose, our track record was this, you can say, our main selling proposition, because we were very clear of what we have achieved in other countries in similar markets like Pakistan and what we intend to achieve over here in Pakistan. So
Yeah.
I think that really, that clarity of vision and purpose really went a long way in getting quality talent on board.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's the more clear you are, the better communication you can do with the talent that you're hiring or the person you want to recruit. So yeah, absolutely important. One last question to each of you, more of advice. Um, what advice would you give Sadia to, budding HR folks uh, who are hiring, who are trying to retain people who've joined an organization? What kind of advice would you give them uh, for their success? How to find the right people, because that's what they are measured on. That's what companies evaluate them on. Because HR people are still also evaluated, right? They evaluate everyone else, but they are also evaluated by their management on how well they work. So, what kind of advice would you give? Because you've been with the same company for a long period of time. You were in a different role. I remember you mentioned, and you switched to another role. Um, what kind of advice would you give to budding HR people? Sadi, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. So shall I
Yeah, yeah, go on.
shall
Yeah,
I
if you
start
could.
off?
Yeah, please, please,
Yeah.
please.
So I need to give an advice first, right?
Yeah, yeah. What advice would you give to young HR,
Okay.
people
So
who are joining?
I think that is an advice for myself also, not for the people out there only. That grow your network and stay connected with the relevant people. Grow your network appropriately, because many times what would happen is, if you don't know anything, that is not a problem. But you will have to touch base with the relevant people and you will get the right answers.
Brilliant
That's a
advice.
very short, but I think that's a very, very precise answer to your question. Stay connected to the relevant people.
No, I think it's a brilliant advice. I think things are evolving so fast, you can't have answers to all the questions. But if you can, figure out where the trend is moving, where the companies are doing, where the ecosystem is moving, you can actually stay on top of it and solve that problem for
Because
them.
many times what happens is, what you know may wear out, but people in the industry are would always know what's recent and what's the most updated thing.
Great, great, great advice. Um Aisha, so for you, I have a different question, but on an advice side. But uh, जो fresh graduates है, who are coming out looking for jobs, tech ho, non-tech ho, what advice would you give them when looking and to join a company, or their first job, or maybe they are early in the career, एक दो साल हुआ है और वो अभी जॉब ढूंढ रहे हैं या जॉब स्विच करने का सोच रहे हैं, और हो सकता है उनके पास मल्टीपल ऑफर्स हो हाथ में. uh, so what advice would you give them, like किस तरह की organization join करें, और क्या, what are the checklists, what are the checkpoints that they should have in place?
So, in terms of making that decision, what kind of organizations that they should go for. वहाँ पे एक बहुत की पॉइंट जो आता है, दैट इज दैट व्हाट यू रियली वांट टू डू विद योर करियर in the long run, and where do you see yourself. And this is the reason why a lot of interviewers even ask that question, where do you see yourself in 5 years time, 10 years time, because if you've answered that question for yourself, you're better able to decide where you want to be and how you should take your start, first of all. um, I have interviewed a lot of candidates who have no clarity about why they're even applying for the job, where they're headed, and how will this particular role add value to their future career prospects or the future success. So I think that clarity for the candidate really goes a long way, and it also helps the employer in deciding whether they want that candidate on board or not. Because at the end of the day, it's all about alignment. Secondly, one thing that I noticed during conducting countless interviews was that people don't come prepared. They've not done their homework on the company. They're not sure of who they are, because if you ask them detailed questions about their own experiences, or when you're trying to do a cultural fit assessment, a lot of them struggle over there because they don't know who they are and they don't know what they're trying to do with their life. So having that clarity, having that self-awareness actually goes a long way to show to the employer that this is the value that you bring to the organization. Because at the end of the day, it's just an exchange in which the employer and the potential talent is trying to reconcile to what extent their future vision or future goals are actually aligned. So it's all about assessing each other's alignment, basically.
Amazing. Thank you, both of you. We have a few questions in the comments. I'll just put them up and would love if someone would like to comment on that. So the question is, we are willing to provide the employee with the best perks and benefits, but they are still unwilling to stay. What do we do now to retain them? Sadia, I think you look, uh, you know, you are the right person to respond to that.
So I would say there are only certain things that you can do. So I was addressing to one of the resignations a couple of days back, and I wanted to know how flexible the resource is, because you always have to realize how flexible the other person is. I can be very rigid and say I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this, right? But if I'm not flexible in my demands, then this, things cannot work out. So you have to analyze how flexible the resource is and how reasonable the other person is in the demands, because obviously a company cannot do everything. For example, if an employee is asking for 10 different things, a company wouldn't be able to do it, because in my case I have 350 other employees to cater to, right? So you need to understand how flexible the resource is and what is it that you can do, and then you can go accordingly. If you are willing to do everything and then again employee is not willing to stay, there's not much you can do. I'm sorry, you cannot make the person stay if he's not willing to stay. There's only
Right.
something that you can do about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Aisha, would you like to add anything to this?
Yeah, so it's really important to first find out the reason that why are they not willing to stay, and जब आपका exit interview होता है उसमें वो reasons बहुत clarify हो जाते हैं. Sometimes it's got to do more with the culture of the organization, their relationship with their immediate line manager, relationship with colleagues, whether they're able to maintain work-life balance, because ये सब चीजें भी आपके समझे benefits में ही आती हैं. So you really need to get to the bottom of the entire thing, that is it they're leaving because of the perks and the benefits, or is it something deeper that is not being addressed. Because if one employee or two employees are like feeling the same way about a certain issue, it's possible that others are as well. So I think a deeper you can say investigation or a deeper research is necessary before deciding what to do.
Cool. We have another question from Fatima Iqbal. Can you please suggest a control for people who agree for a role and then they don't sign once the contract is offered? I think this is more of an ethics and moral issue uh, than than anything. But any suggestions on how to ensure that this you don't go through that phase, or you find out a way to cut it down? How do you do that? Like Sadia, how do you do that?
I think first of all, a healthy discussion and setting the expectations right would be a better way to do it. Of course, if you have a performance plan in place, that can help. Um, Obviously, when once a resource join, I'm sure, I don't know how it's happening in other organizations, but we do have a KPI system in place, so we share the KPIs with them, and then we have a probation period in place, so we share first month's feedback, and then we share second month's feedback, and then we go about it. So if somebody is not performing well and according to the role that or she has signed up for, then we take it up from there. We don't you know send a confirmation to that employee. We give feedback, we keep extending the probation period, and then we basically don't sign up for that employee. So I think initial 1-2 महीने में आपको पता चल जाता है where you are standing with the person, with an employee. So
But I
if
think
you
there is
have if you
another
have a good
there is
plan in place, I think it
yeah.
can help.
But I think there is another challenge that, I think this is one of the questions as well, which Ikra Arshad is asking about in tech recruitment, that people take an offer from one place, then they go to another place and say, "Oh, I've got an offer. Would
Yeah.
you increase that?" Aisha, what's your take on that? How do you uh, what should we do about it? Because
So I think जो फातिमा का जो question था, from what I understand is that uh, she's probably talking about a time period in which an employee agrees verbally or unofficially that yes, I will
yeah,
take up this role, and then just does not proceed forward with signing the contract and making it official. So अच्छा, मैंने अपने रिक्रूटमेंट सिस्टम के अंदर आई हैव एक्चुअली बिल्ट इन अ सिस्टम फॉर रेड फ्लैग्स व्हिच स्टार्ट फ्रॉम द डे आई कॉल द potential talent for the first interview. So from the point of the first interview all the way to the final negotiation, because we have a threefold interview process, we actively monitor the behavior of the potential talent in terms of how he or she is responding to informal communication. So we have this criteria for monitoring for red flags, and if we feel that in between those interviews there are red flags regarding the behavior of the employee, uh, then our decision to even go for that employee is sort of like changes by the time we reach the third interview. And that
yeah,
really helps, and it gives us a signal that if the person is not responsible enough right now in terms of how they're managing this process, probably they might not be a good fit for the company.
right. So you have kind of like a secret sauce,
Yeah, you can say that.
which you follow to figure out like what are the intentions, or what where is he heading, what is the is he coming with a positive mindset, is he coming to really you
Yeah,
know
because in between aligning those three interviews, their behavior leaks, which people
yeah,
don't realize that somewhere along in WhatsApp coordination, in like, making those phone calls, responding back to those phone calls, you do get an idea of how responsible overall this person is. तो वहीं पे ही हमें idea हो जाता है whether this person is responsible enough to take up this role or not. So that's, you can say, a sort of back end screening that we also do.
mm. No, I think that's a great way of doing it. Another question we have, sorry, we are, it's an amazing thing that we are having a very engaging session and a lot of people are asking questions. So Maheen Tofail asks, many times we encounter with junior or freshers whose professional career has just started. He or she has all the right skills and has all the potential to learn, but still that employee needs to be trained professionally. How will you start making him internalize the concept of professional ethics? Do you just think making the policies is enough for it? Um, Sadia, any thoughts on that? कि प्रोफेशनल एथिक्स सिर्फ पॉलिसीज में होनी चाहिए या कुछ करना चाहिए उसके बारे में कंपनीज को ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस को should they put some
I
effort
think
behind it?
then you lead by example. So, for example, if I am the manager, right, and I have 4 team members, they will always follow my lead. So you have to lead by example. If I have one junior team member, he or she will always follow what other senior team members are doing. So you need to, first of all, I need to get my act together, and then I need to make sure the rest of my team members are doing things appropriately. If I have if even if I don't have the right policies in place, and if we are doing things in the right manner, I think the junior team member will learn the right professionalism, he will learn the right code of conduct, and he will do things accordingly. So you have to lead by example.
Great, great, great advice. Aisha, you want to add anything?
Building up to what Sadia said, I believe that leading by example is very important when you're setting the tone. In addition to that, I think having a clear system of processes and accountability in place really helps as well. Because when the right behaviors are rewarded and the wrong behaviors are reprimanded over and over again, even if it's for one or two people, it sets the tone for everybody else that these are the behaviors which are encouraged in this organization, and these are the behaviors which are not so encouraged in the organization. Secondly, I have also observed that it really helps to mentor and coach those young people as well. And I think it's the responsibility of the line manager to actively take it upon themselves to regularly mentor and coach their team members. Mentoring and coaching goes a long way. Unfortunately, there's a dearth of the right coaches or the right mentors, but globally, this concept is pretty much out there. I mean, no athlete becomes a true professional athlete without having the right mentors and coaches in on board, and I think sports is a classic example. So I think building that culture is very necessary, and it should not
Amazing.
be taken negatively basically, but just give them a chance to develop those skills.
Hey, amazing. I think both the points, leading by example, building system processes, uh, and then mentorship. I think this mentorship is very underrated. Um, it's not. It's misunderstood. I think it needs a complete session on its own to really talk about it in detail and really go in deep dive on that. Sadia, Aisha, thank you. It was an amazing session. I think the audience loved it. It was a very engaging session. Um, and I'm thankful to all the people who joined us. Whoever registered, who is live on the show with us, who could not join, will get a video link of this recording. And we look forward to doing more sessions in future. And thank you again, Aisha and Sadia, for joining us. Take care. Khudafis.
Thank you,
Thank you
Sibtain.
very much for having me.
Thank you. Khudafis.